we good with you guys back there? We good? All right, cool. Hey, everybody, welcome to Friday the 13th. Woo! My voice is gone. Much better. So, all of us here from Gun. I'll just start from the left. You got Randy Greenback, our executive producer. You got Wes Keltner, butt technician, also co-creator. You've got Ronnie Hobbs, the other co-creator. You've got Chuck from Ilphonic, head of the studio development, and I'm Ben. I'm just here so I don't get fined. Today we will be talking about our Kickstarter. So the idea is, you guys might have remembered, we did a Kickstarter a long time ago, and we've since launched the game, and as of last count, 1.8 million units have been sold across Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. And that's thanks, hopefully, to you guys. I guess most of you played, or not. Wow, the excitement is palpable. All right, so first off, I just raise of hands. Did anyone here kickstart us, help us out?
Hey.
A few hands. Thank you very much. You guys really helped develop it, all that stuff. But I think I'm going to go ahead and let these guys get started, and we're going to go through the whimsical world of kickstarting.
All right, but first, let's do some setup on our story, like how we got going.
You want to show the thing first?
The thing?
We'll end with it.
Okay, it's fine.
Or we can lead with it. Do you want to lead with it?
I don't care. We don't know what we're doing.
All right, let's lead with it.
Whatever.
Did anybody see our Twitch interview today?
We did a Twitch thing at like noon.
12. We showed a video today, and we're going to show it again. It's the same video we showed this morning, but if you've been playing the game, this is one of the DLC packs we have coming out. So we just wanted to show it here. So,
all right,
let's watch it.
Rated M for mature.
So how about that Speedo?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it? I heard someone yell out, Deborah, or something when they saw her. Someone's a big fan of Deborah here. Yeah.
Yeah.
La Chapa?
Yeah, he didn't quite get a
He's not
bikini or a
comfortable,
Speedo.
you know. He's kind of shy, and he likes the Hawaiian shorts.
Yeah, you don't want to see that anyways. Trust me.
He's pretty shy, so yeah. So anyway, that's something that's going to be coming out soon. We just wanted to show that this weekend. So it's been something we've been working on, and we've had a lot of requests actually for skimpier clothes than what Tiffany already has in the game. People want to see more. So thanks to the booty technician here, we perfected some of that.
You guys are filthy. Every one of you.
Yeah, it's all your fault. So soon you'll be running around in bikinis and stuff like that. So each one of the counselors has their own unique, based on their trope.
We also rebuilt the clothing system so that there's a little more color variation and things you can choose. So if you wanted, if you had Tiffany that had a two-piece on, you can change the color of the top and then have like a different color at the bottom. And there's different textures and things you can do with clothing. So we saw how people were playing the game, and we saw a lot of requests for more customization. And the system we had before was a little more rigid, so we couldn't do that. So we had to kind of go back in and revamp that. So when all this stuff rolls out soon, you'll have a brand new UI in the clothing areas to do more upgrades and things. And Also, some car customization options
Oh.
are going to be in there too.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know we were talking about it.
Oh yeah, it's in the video.
Run over your friends.
There's a dev video out there that's on our website if you want to go like learn more about it. But yeah, there's some stickers and bumper car things or bumper sticker things and some other little things that you can add to the vehicles to better customize those. And
So when you run your friend over, you can do it
in style.
in a very unique way. So
exactly.
You can't really tune the cars up because the
No.
cars have to drive like they drive.
Yeah, no, it's not. You know, you're not putting like new rims on the car or anything. You're not slamming it or anything like that. It's more just you're just customizing with like
More
different
red,
stickers
more
and
faster.
colors and things like that.
yeah. Okay,
So-
let's get to it. All right.
So yeah, we're gonna start. For those of you who don't know how this game started and our pretty much our Cinderella story and how things came to be and how we got the Friday the 13th license. So we're gonna take you all the way back. What was this, around 2013 when we started?
Well, the idea goes way back before that, but it was.
When did you call me? That was
When did you
Feels so
call
long
John?
It was
ago
the
now.
end of.
2014.
We announced October 31st, 2014.
So it was the
Halloween.
end of 2013 when we started the paper.
I started really kicking it around. But I mean, for
Yeah.
years, like with the different people at other studios or whatever, we've kicked around ideas like this. But never before until 2013 did we actually say this is what we want to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it was always going to be an homage to the Friday the 13th series. It was Slasher Volume 1 Summer Camp,
And
right?
I'm sorry, but I mean, I was really stoked that we got the Friday 13th like IP. I'm not even going to say that was the hugest thing and changed all of our lives, but that slogan is like the best slogan.
It's pretty
of all
good.
time. I'm
If
really-
you can read it.
I'm really sad. It says your sleeping bag will be your body bag.
And you'll hear that pretty soon. You'll hear it.
I was at Target actually shopping when you sent me that text. And you were
I
and I was like,
very much remember how ecstatic he was.
It was over after that, so.
yeah, but when I got the call from Wes, like he said, "Hey, we want you to work on this game called Summer Camp," and I'm like, "Oh man, I don't do kids games, you know." So, I had no idea what we were getting into until he kind of explained it a little more. I'm like, "Oh, Slasher Volume 1, okay, yeah, I know, right?"
Yeah, one of the cool things, the game has always been pretty much the game. Like the core of the game has always been the 7v1 asymmetrical multiplayer game. Hide and seek plus murder that everybody has played and enjoyed and loved. So that hasn't changed much. It's just gotten better and better once we got the license. But we'll take you way back and show you the trailer in case you never saw it.
We're going to play this until you hate it. We play this every panel, and we love it. Oh, we hired Tom Savini, obviously, and then Kane Hodder and Harry Manfredini.
Forest green, quiet, tranquil, a nice place to camp. But when the sun goes down, something stalks the forest.
You can
On
laugh.
a warm
it's okay.
June night in 1984, a group of teen counselors are about to have the night of their lives. No one is safe. No one will survive. Because at summer camp, your sleeping bag will be your body bag.
It's so good. Hang on, we're about to hit you with a little teaser here too. It fades into like some wireframe. Yeah. Little did we know that trailer.
Kind of kicked everything off.
It set the stage for everything, and I would like to think it's because the trailer was really awesome, which it was. But of course, we had Tom and Harry and Kane on board, and just the fact that Wes called them and they returned the phone call and said, "Yeah, we'll work on this game called Summer Camp." Like, we were just
And
looking
then they
at each
watched
other.
that trailer and they were like, "Would you spend like $50 on that?"
Yeah. But they agreed to do this, and then that got all the horror community talking about, "Oh, this might be a Friday the 13th game." And at this point, we hadn't been talking to the Friday the 13th guys at all. We had just announced it, and what happened next?
And my phone rang. And
Well, actually, first it was an email.
I think it was several emails.
There was
that
an
we
email that
ignored
came through first.
the infamous
from-
email.
from a party that was like affiliated with Sean Cunningham, and so we saw the email and we were like, I don't know.
Sounds fishy.
Yeah, it just didn't like the wording on it. We were like, nah, it's fake.
This might not be legit.
It's fake. It's somebody like trolling us or something. Let's move on.
So we ignored it for like at least a couple weeks.
It was almost,
Easily.
We had meetings like every day about this email.
It was
What should
probably
we
a
do?
month. It was probably a month that we
Are
ignored
they going
it.
to steal our idea? Do they
Right.
want to see our game design?
I'm like,
They're just
is
going to
this
take
real?
it? Like,
Are they
we had
going to
no
sue
idea.
us?
And then the phone rang, and it was
Yeah.
Sean and his team, and I was like, oh.
So-
So at first, yeah, I thought we were in trouble, to be
But
honest
because
with you.
Harry
But-
ran into...
Yeah, Harry
Harry-
Manfredi bumped into Sean at a convention and was like, oh, Sean's like, hey, what are you working on? He's like, oh, I'm working on this game. It's called Summer Camp, and it's kind of like Friday the 13th. You should check it out.
And
Sean
he did check it out.
And then he was like, oh, this is awesome. And so he gave us a call. And yeah, we were really scared at first, thinking we danced too close to the fire and we were about to get shut
Like,
down.
that's it. We're done. Shutting it down before we even start.
Right. But
Time
it
to go
was
work at
the
Target.
complete opposite of that. And Sean was like super cool and was really into the idea and loved that we were, sort of paying homage to what he had created. And,
Yeah.
he kind of saw, I guess, a little bit of that spirit that he had when he first made the first film, kind of saw that in our team and saw that we were kind of scrappy and we're definitely in love with horror and we're doing it the right way. So he was like, man, you got the band back together, but you're kind of missing the lead singer. He's like, so
That's what he said.
how about me and the license? And we were like, heck yeah. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how that came to be.
But he didn't give us money with it.
No,
No.
there was no money.
So,
Yeah.
No money.
Kickstarter, right?
Hence Kickstarter.
Hence Kickstarter.
Yeah, so has anyone here ever backed a Kickstarter other than our game? You guys back it like, okay. Have you ever been burnt on a project? Have you had... Yeah, we've all been there. I think we've backed 100 projects probably between all of us.
Easily.
So before we were involved in Kickstarter, there were things we didn't know as a consumer. And you always wonder, like, what's it like? How do you take money as Kickstarter and how do you allocate that towards a game and how do you actually pull it off? Because there's a reason you're going to Kickstarter. It's because you don't have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But the hard thing is taking the money that you do get, which isn't a whole lot, and making a game. So it's almost jumping into the fire and hoping that you don't get burned. So hopefully we have some good knowledge today that if anyone's watching at home and they're thinking about starting a Kickstarter, that we can help if a little bit at least. So.
Yeah, I guess the biggest lesson we learned is planning. Like, you need lots of it, as much as you can get. Like, do your research, spend as much time as you can diving deep and figuring out what's worked before and what's working currently. We did 3 months of planning, leading up to the Kickstarter. I wish it was like 6, easily double that.
Yeah.
That was one of the craziest times. Like, we were just spitballing. We didn't know what to expect. We were coming up with like lists of reward tiers, what our stretch goals might be, and we were constantly reorging them and changing them, cutting some, adding more, and just trying to figure out like what's the best foot forward we can put.
Right.
Yeah, and Chuck will tell you this too, from a development standpoint. Because we only had 3 months to plan, as a studio we sat around and we said, hey, these are the things we want in our game, and we think we know a price for them. You think you know a cost of what they're going to be, and it's an estimate, but whatever you put on those stretch goal lists, you better be prepared to honor,
Yeah.
right? So you can't put something ridiculously crazy in there and then you get the money, then you can't pull it off. So that's what really causes a lot of uproar in the Kickstarter community is people putting in stretch goals and then they reach them and then they don't ever get it, or they cancel that, or they delay that feature and then it never comes out. So that's like the hardest thing to
Yeah.
deal with for us was planning those stretch goals.
Yeah, and as a developer, I mean, there's so much that just goes into the Kickstarter and keeping up with it. I mean, even though, our job is to develop the game, I mean, there's still a lot of support we're doing for the Kickstarter to kind of keep people aware, try to, there's things we want to show everyone, but we know that things might be early and not ready yet, so we're trying to get those, buttoned up so that we can show them. So, it can really derail the schedule as well.
It can derail the whole
those few
project.
months. Yeah.
I mean, if you make a wrong decision on a stretch goal, it can take your entire budget just quickly, and all of a sudden your game can't come out.
And the crazy thing is you plan your milestones and dates and when you sign up to do the Kickstarter, but then everything just kind of rolls in over time. So it's not like you can
schedules change.
hit the ground running as you move,
Yeah.
So
Right.
So some of the things that in this planning phase that we really kind of nailed, I thought, was, we really understood, since we were all big fans of horror and big fans of all these movies, we really understood like who the people we were talking to are going to be, what they wanted, what they were looking for. So it was really just a matter of like figuring out how we're going to pitch it and tell that story. So, we lined up a bunch of people. We started working with Adam Sessler, and we started figuring out how we're going to deliver this to everybody else. But while we were prepping that, we had this really awesome idea, and I forget where it came from, but we had been talking about it. I think Wes ended up gelling it. It was the VHS recorder. Oh, yeah. And, this is how we were going to kind of build anticipation and get everybody interested in what the heck this summer camp game was going to do when this VHS tape dropped.
Yeah, this was a website.
It was a website that had and the ticker was the timer that was on the VHS, and it was counting down, of course. And then when it hit 0, the top loader VHS animated. It drop down and press play, and it showed the first trailer that summer camp is actually Friday the 13th. So that's how we unveil was at that second, and at that same second, our Kickstarter page activated at the same time. So just trying to sync all those moving parts up at the same time doesn't sound difficult. It is.
But it was important, though. At the end of the day, we had a lot of horror communities and just forums and websites cover that ticker, and they were trying to anticipate what we were going to do.
Yeah, and
just based off this little game we had. So you need something like that too. You can't just launch your Kickstarter the day of and hit go and expect people to cover it.
Yeah, the press isn't going to cover it. There's a lot of Kickstarter fatigue. But one of the big things we wanted to do was to use this site and build that buzz to collect emails so that when we did go up live, we can send out immediately to everybody, hey, Kickstarter's live, go back it now, because it is critical. It is vital that you have this big surge of backers in your first 3 days. So this was kind of our way to kind of get that going so that we would hit that mark that we knew we could fund if we were to hit it. I think it's, 30%?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the lesson there in the initial before you launch is make sure you find a way to build some type of anticipation, and to find a way to get those people that are interested, find a way to keep them and hold on to them. That way you can contact them when you do make your announcement. Because we all sign up for things and we forget about them when we move on with our lives. And you go, oh yeah, I remember that thing. I put my email in there. So you have to get your target audience and hang on to them no matter what. So
again, it's a full-time thing. You're talking everybody that messages you needs to be contacted. I mean, these are people that are interested in a project. They're the people that are willing to put money up and potentially not get something in return. That's the Kickstarter way. And again, we want to ensure that every single person knows that we hear them, that we listen to them. And I mean, it legitimately is a full-time job just to run the Kickstarter. You're not even working on the game, really. You're working on getting the game made, kind of thing.
Which is a great point, because I don't know if you're going to cover this in a second, but you have to have someone allocated to the crowd. So you need someone working your Kickstarter that's responding to all the emails and doing all the updates.
And that comments on the page.
But that person cannot be your producer. It can't be anyone that's on the development team. So we made Randy do this job. Because we weren't prepared for the amount of work that it was going to cost someone. Yeah. It's a full-time job. So
it was more. It was like 3 full-time jobs.
So as a small studio, when you're launching your Kickstarter, you may not have more than 4 or 5 employees. So you need to outsource some help, like your friends, whoever that is well-versed in community and forums. You don't have to go super wide with the message, but you need to be able to always recontact people that reach out to you. So we didn't know that. Like we underestimated how much work Kickstarter was in terms of just updating the community, always. And so it was poor Randy, nonstop. And he was doing dev stuff with us, too. So he was constantly doing gameplay with us and then battling all the other tasks.
Yeah,
so you need someone on your team for that.
Somebody has to step up and do it, or you need to have somebody just ready to roll. It was 18-hour days, a lot of the time answering every email, and at the end of it all, I think I got pneumonia.
Yeah, he almost died on us. So it's not a joke. It's a very easy thing to overlook. Oh, we'll deal with the Kickstarter messages later. That is the bulk of your time, and we had no one to do it, and we were ill prepared for that.
So, right out of the gate, you have to know exactly, this is really important. What's the promise and what's the ask? You have to make it super clear. If people don't know why you need the money and you're not explaining it to them, they're probably not going to back it. So we broke everything down. We told them exactly why we needed it. And in our story, when we filmed these interviews, we told everybody, once we got the Friday the 13th license, expectations kind of grew. The scope of the game had to grow because of the fact that now we need to do multiple Jasons. We need probably multiple levels. It's got to be a much bigger game, and the expectations increase right there. So some of the things that we had to do was prep everything that needed to go up on the page, everything that kind of explained our reward tiers.
Oh man,
how
long did that take?
Oh God, the work.
A month and a half.
Everything you see on Kickstarter for every game, you're going to need at least a month probably to have a graphic designer, someone on your team lay that out. And if you don't have someone, you're going to be looking around how do we do this? It takes forever, and it took us a long time.
Or you're going to have a very boring page that
it doesn't get money. Right?
Scroll real quick, and they're like, man.
You're like, if they can't take the time to make that part great, then I'm not going to trust them making a game. Yeah. So you're going to spend a lot of your money on hiring a graphic designer, or someone on your team's going to have to do this. So That's one thing that you don't know until you hit the button to sign up. And they go, here's the million things you need. And you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah, and what we wrote the copy once, twice, 3, 4 times, had it reviewed by everybody, and then if you have a license involved like we did, then all of a sudden what you think you're done with your page, but no, it has to be approved.
Yeah.
So it has to go to like Warner Brothers, like all the people have to kind of check it off, and everybody wants to make a change here and there to. Because some lawyer said this or that or whatever.
Yeah, these are all easy things to overlook that you just don't
We
know
were
because you
down to
haven't
the
been through
wire,
it.
I think. Like literally like a day before, we still had not gotten final approval to set our page live.
Yeah.
But we had all this buzz building, and we had the VHS tape that was going to drop. Everything
And we
was
couldn't
ready to
stop the
roll.
tape.
We had the date planned perfectly. And so yeah, you can't take anything for granted.
Yeah, don't skimp on this section if you're ever going to do a Kickstarter.
So we'll play the trailer, the original trailer, right here.
This is the Kickstarter.
This is the Kickstarter trailer.
After it happened, I expected someone to do something. I expected parents to show up with questions and concerns. I thought the police would have done more, but nothing happened. Nothing changed.
Shh, quiet. Someone will hear us.
They opened it again the next year, and they were back to their old habits.
Troy, did you hear something?
Relax, babe. Probably just Steve trying to scare us.
They're just kids, right? So was he. He was just an innocent boy. I was a good mother to him. My boy. My sweet, sweet Jason.
It says painful.
It is.
That's where we started,
Look back
right
and
there.
see that. That's
You
kind
see
of
stuff
painful.
that's so like low poly models and the environments and
So
stuff. It's
we
like,
put
oh.
that thing. I mean, we had to put that thing together really quick.
Oh, yeah.
And it did help.
While
as you-
trying to prototype the game on top of it.
But overnight, like it was instantly, everyone was covering it. There was finally a Friday 13th game again. So as painful as that is for us to watch, like just it got us attention, and the world jumped on board and started funding our game, and it was really, we were really grateful for all that.
So after we did our launch, like one of the things that we knew going in we were going to have because of our research that we did up front was that we knew we had to plan out our press bumps. Like literally, like what are our touch points with the press? What are we going to say? What are we going to talk about? And how often are we going to do that?
Yeah.
Because there's this part of the project, every Kickstarter project, this long middle where everything kind of just stalls. And you got to keep pumping it and pushing towards that end stretch goal.
Which is also why we chose. I think the Kickstarter began on October 13th, and then ran until November 13th,
which was Friday.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it ended on a Friday the 13th, but in the middle, where it's usually the lowest, was at Halloween.
So we got to bump
So
up
we
again.
chose on the calendar a time that we thought may give us a little more juice when most Kickstarters hit their slump. We were hoping to see it, an uptick just because people were sort of in the scary spirit.
And that happens to all Kickstarters too. Like that's a thing that people don't think about. They're small companies. There's 4 or 5 people together, and they don't really think about the marketing. You have to have people interested in your Kickstarter the whole time, right? Even throughout the development. How many times you back a game and 2 years go by and you forget you did it? You're like, wait, did that game come out? I paid for it. What happened? Right? It's because no one's talking about it. It's because the media is not talking about your game anymore because you're stuck in a development hell and you're trying to just finish the game on the budget you have and you forget to get people to talk about it. So that's a big, big part. And we were able to plan that with PAX panels. I don't know if you guys have ever been to our other PAX panels, but we try to show something at each PAX panel. We try to keep people interested, and that's a big part of keeping your project alive.
Oh, yeah.
And as a developer, it was kind of a whole new way to
Oh,
develop.
he hated us too. Oh, by the way, Chuck, next week we need a video for PAX East.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'd be like, but we had this milestone with you guys.
We're like,
we're
sorry.
supposed to have like first playable, and now we need this video, and so it's tricky because we're trying to keep the community engaged, and we're trying to give them a window into development. But as far as a developer, we're used to kind of just going away. Maybe we work on a game where a publisher would announce it, and then you go away for 2 years and no one hears about it, and you kind of have the time alone with it, but this was always, we're always trying to show stuff. So it was a challenge, but it was also very, I guess, cool to see because there was great responses from what was coming out from everything. So it kind of kept the team really just encouraged to move forward, It
is a difficult piece of this if you're considering going through Kickstarter to make your own game, is that you do have to show a lot of assets and things that are obviously not ready yet. Like, they're not ready, and they're not the best thing that you can make, but you still have to, because there's people that will read every word on your page, on your Kickstarter page, and there's people that don't want to read anything and they just want to look at pictures and videos, right? You need to provide both. And so if you don't have, you have to have those assets to provide. It's just very, very difficult because, again, that if you had more time and money and everything else, that it's going to look a lot better, but it is what it is at this point, and you have to just kind of be okay with letting it go. But
you feel obligated, right?
Yeah.
You owe your Kickstarter backers progress updates, and they want to see the game in action. But when you show them, they take that and they put it out, and press covers it, and they grab your images, and they go, new screenshots for Friday 13th, which is great. Right. And you're like, man, those weren't really supposed to be out there. They were just for our Kickstarter backers.
Right. They're like super pre-alpha.
And then people judge you, and they go, this game looks like shit, right? And we're like,
we showed that stuff really early.
The early
pre-alpha.
Yeah.
So it was fine, though. It gave them a look at the game, and, it was all for our Kickstarter backers.
Sure.
So,
it's kind of like making a pizza. Like, you're in the kitchen, like, rolling out the dough, putting the stuff on it, and somebody walks in and goes, oh, man, pizza, sweet. Can I have a slice? And you're like, dude, I haven't even put it in the oven yet. And they're like, no, I know.
I'll eat it.
And you're like, okay. And they take a bite, and they're like, it tastes like shit. And you're like,
it's not
good, dude. It's not done yet. But for some reason, there's some people have a hard time, like, connecting that. I think a lot of it just comes from if you haven't really been in the trenches and, like, make your own stuff, and then it's really scary to show your stuff when it's not done yet. So, but it's a thing you kind of have to do when if you're going to choose to do a Kickstarter.
Which you also need someone showing that stuff. Back to the previous point, have someone in charge of all this, and it can't be building your game. So that's a big, big lesson we learned.
Yeah, and then this is when we started. We literally just fired up all of our social channels, and it was constant questions coming in. Like, people had,
Ben.
Yeah, that was a lot of Ben at that time.
The horror. Yeah. No, but it's really something like you touched on it earlier. I mean, you've got thousands and thousands and thousands, and I can go on that one, but so many people that, are they really going to read all of that Kickstarter?
No.
More than likely, no. So it's really kind of a droning effect where you're like answering the same thing over and over again. But you got to remember, these are people that are, they've got money, and they're like, hey, these guys, I could probably give them some money and they'll give me a game. That'd be pretty cool. And that's how they're looking at it. And, you want to answer each and every one of them with the same enthusiasm, which we generally do until we're like 40 hours awake and then pass out and on a couch at the office. But again, these are things that you have to be prepared for if you're going to be doing a Kickstarter. You have to have somebody completely dedicated. I mean, you go from, especially at Spikes, I mean, there's thousands and thousands of tweets coming out every couple of minutes. I mean, it's almost impossible to follow that. So if you're going to be doing a Kickstarter and you have a lot of people interested, you got to be prepared for that. So
the downside is no one cares about your game, and you don't have to have anyone answering them. So it's kind of in the middle.
It's a double-edged sword.
Exactly. It's a good problem to have, but you have to have
ready,
someone to do it. So.
And this was the time when we started figuring out, like, what's our plan for building community? Who's our core audience? And there were a lot of people who were active, like, every single day in our Kickstarter, like, thread that sits there at the comment thread at the bottom of the page. Mm-hmm. And we started building our Twitch up and streaming horror games, and answering questions live with people. And slowly but surely, our F-13 army, kind of came to be, and they were really vocal, and they ended up helping us educate people far more than we could have ever done ourselves.
Oh, yeah. And they're right there out there. I mean, we've got fan-driven communities at this stage, where, I mean, we've got a Discord server that's officially partnered now by Discord, and they work with the subreddit, and these are all fan-driven. We're involved in them, but we don't pull any strings. Like, we have no say in what that community does. All we can do is say, hey, here's some shiny new stuff, and let them do what they want, what they're going to do. But it's really something that if you're doing a Kickstarter where you've got this core fan base, you really do need to talk to them because A, they believe in you, B, they're cool, C, they can really help spread that word. So it's something that anybody should be doing, is working with that community that is doing things for no payment. They've actually given you money and that believe in you. I mean, if they believe in you, you should believe in them. So the more that we're absolutely thankful for all of those people that run our Discord, that run the subreddit, they're on our forums. And even when they're like, hey, stop sucking, we still appreciate that because they care enough to talk about us. So when you're doing that as a Kickstarter, that's something I'd absolutely invest a ton of time into.
Yeah, and be genuine always. That's the key. Actually be friends with the people. Don't just pay them lip service and ask them to do something for you. No, you have to really care about them, and they care about you. And that's just how it works.
But yeah, and as a developer, I mean, that's kind of, once that community was built and people started, pledging for the Kickstarter, I think that's where, the pressure and the stress got really crazy on the development team because, I mean, if we don't deliver with the publisher, we know that they're prepared for the risk, right? But when it comes to direct interactions with backers, that's when it's like, oh, we really can't let these people down. I mean, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them, and now we have to really deliver on this. So.
Yep, true. Here we go. It's a good one.
It's a good
Yeah,
one.
this is
technical stuff.
where all the lessons were learned. I mean, and these were hard realities to kind of take in. But first and foremost, if you're thinking about kickstarting a game, it's not free money. You're not going to just flip on the switch and money just arrives at your doorstep. It does not work that way. It is a lot of hard work. Sometimes harder work to do a Kickstarter raise than it would be to go out and actually get investment of the game.
Oh, it's hands down way harder.
Tenfold. I mean,
way harder. If you're not plugged into any type of groups that can get you money, venture capital, private investment, whatever. If you have zero connections in that, it may take you time to get your foot in that door. You're going to work harder at Kickstarter than that.
Yeah.
Even if you know zero people in that world.
Yeah, but especially from a consumer perspective, you hand someone your money on Kickstarter, and they get it, and you expect them just to build the game with it. But in reality, they have to take that money, and it goes to 1,000 different directions.
Well,
then they have to
30% of it's gone already.
Exactly. Yeah. So Kickstarter takes their 30%. So just go ahead and know it's gone forever.
Yeah, taxes gone.
Yep.
All that money, it's all taxed by the government, every penny of it. So that has to be accounted for. There's fees associated with it. Kickstarter actually takes a cut of all of your raise. And a lot of people don't know that going into it, but you have to plan for it because that money is gone. It's not going to the game, it's going to Kickstarter. Yeah. And they built that platform, that they deserve it. But, yeah, and we really saw a big win with our campaign timing. Like Wes was saying earlier, we started it on October 13th and it ended on a Friday the 13th. So not only did we have Halloween, but we had that big bump on a Friday the 13th where the press was going to follow up no matter what because we were the biggest story that day in games. The Kickstarter for Friday the 13th is ending on Friday the 13th. So you have to find creative ways and look for places and holes that you can fill with your Kickstarter and schedule it and try to find the best timing for that.
And Twitch is a great tool for that, and Randy utilized that very effectively because even at the start I was kind of confused. Randy's like, "Oh, I'm going to set up a Twitch during the whole Kickstarter," and he was playing every Friday and then continued that every single Friday until the game launched. So almost 2 years, 18 months.
Yeah, as long as possible.
And I was like, "You're going to do what?" He's like, "I'm going to play other horror games and talk about those games in our games. And I was like, are people gonna care about that? And he's like, yeah, let's just do it and see what happens. And it took off. It was a genius idea.
Outreach.
It was really
it's
smart.
a great place for the core community to really have that interaction.
Every Friday night.
Yeah, somebody talking directly to them in some way. And as it grew, I mean, Wes shows up, I show up. Sometimes Ronnie and Chuck, you never showed up. I'm kidding.
We would watch him every Friday night.
Oh, yeah.
In the studio.
It's this thing with our community that, I mean.
We're working.
Yeah, Randy's usually, he still does it.
Working. I haven't had a Friday night, doing stuff and out for a very long time.
Yeah.
But the free money thing, too, people think that as developers you hit a button and you have unlimited amount of copies and you hand the Kickstarter that copy because they gave you money. Well, those copies aren't free. Like, we don't just get those copies from Microsoft, Sony, and Steam. So most of the time, they cost money. So we have to take your money, which we're supposed to be using for development, and then turn around and hand that money to people and get your copy of your game and hand it back to you, like a middleman.
Yeah.
While taking a very little bit of that money and making sure that it goes into the game development. So that's a lot of things people don't know that. They expect that, oh, we can get free copies of our game. You still have to buy them. So
There's free copies that you can get for like members of the press, but that's like a
there's
small amount.
very
You
small
can't-
amount.
You can't go to them and say, I need 20,000 free copies,
20,000
please.
copies
They're
of the
like,
game. They're like, okay, it'll be whatever.
Yeah, and it's
A very expensive number.
it's a price point percentage of the.
Yeah.
It's,
So I don't want to get
different
into the
per
exact.
platform. Sony has their own rate. Microsoft has their own rate, et cetera, et cetera. All things we had no idea about
Man,
until.
that sticker shock was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Because no one told us that. No one knew that.
Yeah.
Kickstarter, if you're a small team and you didn't have the money left over to buy that, it can derail your whole
done.
project.
You're running out of money.
Like, that's, to me, that's the biggest thing in this whole takeaway is if you're making a Kickstarter game, you're going to have to buy those copies.
Yep.
A majority of them. So just save that money aside, which is difficult because you're like, I want to take it and I want to put it in the game. We need it. And then you can't touch it. You're never going to be able to give your customers their copy of the game.
Right.
So something else to live and learn by. But
Another big takeaway that actually worked out really well for us was we planned out a whole bunch of early bird tiers, like people, and we made them very limited. You know, only so many people can get in and get the game at this price. And when those filled up really quickly, we're like, okay, well, now what are we going to do? So the strategy quickly became, okay, well, all these buckets are filled, but we need to start creating new tiers, new rewards, and start encouraging those people who have those lower tier rewards, the early bird rewards, to kind of move up and get more and get the collector's edition. Or we started offering digital rewards, like we had the Camp Counselor database that we offered. We had Jason's tombstones. You can actually be a victim in the game and have a tombstone in one of the levels, have your name on it, name your cabin. We started adding these over time, and people in those early bird tiers would move out of that to these higher end rewards, and then that would create more spots for people to come in, and then we would just wanted to kind of keep that churn going and keep moving people up with more enticing rewards. And that really worked out for us. That really saved us during that long middle when we were worried, so that we kept creeping up, getting closer and closer to the goal before the big surge at the end that all Kickstarters have that are doing somewhat well.
One thing for anyone that is looking at that, one thing you really, really, really need to communicate is the difference on reward tiers. I mean, by the end, we had, like 30 some odd different tiers or so?
Yeah, at least.
We had quite a few, and I mean, there's still confusion with some of our rewards to this day. I mean, we've been out for, 3 months now? We still get emails like, hey, I didn't get my reward, and we have to go in there and look like, hey, that wasn't part of your, people, you really do need to be able to communicate what your reward is to the person, what they're paying for, and you have to explain these things because it can become
times again.
It can become
every day. So just know that
difficult.
It's confusing. It's
So
going to be confusing forever.
Oh, absolutely. So just one thing: communicate.
So that's the other big thing is when you're on Kickstarter, it's all about transparency. Your backers, every day, they put their money in the game. They treat it in their head as an investment, and they want to know what the return is going to be and what's happening with their money, how's it being spent. So as soon as you're able to, it's time you have to try to take the people behind the scenes and show them something that they've never seen before. A lot of people don't know game development is really, really fucking hard. It's a lot harder than anybody out there would even imagine. There's so many things that can go wrong, and there's so many more people that are needed, and it's so costly and time and just time intensive that letting them see that you buy a little leeway for the development and how things are going to go. And when things get bumpy, because you brought them behind the scenes like we did, like when we take them to the mocap and show that, look how many people are here actually filming the mocap. It took 3 months to plan and all this stuff, and still we're going to hit issues. But always be open and honest. Letting them know that and actually showing them what it's going to take buys you a lot actually down the road.
The general public's probably going to judge you on the quality of the assets that you're showing along the way, because that's what we do as consumers. We look at it and go, oh, that sucks, even though it's not done. But your hardcore fans and your backers will appreciate it. So it's like you're giving them something positive, and you're always fighting the perception of the general community that, this isn't that good yet. So, but it's worth it. If you're doing Kickstarter, you have to be loyal to those people and show them along the way. So.
And I'm sure Chuck can speak to this, but like we were hitting problems with animation delays and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And things were taking longer, but we wanted to be open and honest about it. So when we did updates, that would be included in every update. Is like, what's the status of the production side of things?
Well, that's what's tough about even with the Kickstarter is you have to set a date when it's going to come out, but there's really not a bunch of error because people don't want to wait a really long time for something. But then when you have an error, it's easy for us in this industry to kind of go back to a publisher and they expect, and when everything's budgeted out and you work with a project that's a few-year development cycle, all that stuff is kind of planned in. There's contingency plans and everything. So when you go back to the publisher, asking for an additional 6 months is usually the publisher expects you to come do that maybe once or twice, right? Yeah. But it's a lot different when you have to go back and you're almost telling the backers like, hey, look, like we need an additional 6 months, and they're like, oh, 6 more months to wait for this, like
almost like you're letting them down.
Yeah, so it's really
bad.
tough because it's just something we're used to. That's kind of common practice in the industry is delays happen all the time, and that's why games really aren't announced until they could kind of see it's in the last 6 months or year development, whatever. So yeah, that was a great challenge too, and it was a lot of just how do we communicate this? What's the best way to kind of break it? We don't want to let people down, but we want to let them know that we're still here, we're still working, everything's still going good. It's just we hit an issue that we just didn't really foresee. So
don't overstate how hard that was too. Like to all the backers at home, like we hated delivering bad news, but at some point you have to do it. You have to go. Oh, we need more time. This is this time and money. That whole thing.
So another thing is like make the most out of everything you're doing. If you are doing mocap, take some cameras out there, like film it, get as much footage as you can, do some interviews while you're there and whatever. So like one of the things we did, we went ahead and we were shooting at our first shoot at Digital Domain out in Venice Beach. We got all this footage of all these kills in action, but also Kane kind of returning to wear the mask and actually become Jason Voorhees again, which is a great moment.
Yeah, that was a big deal for horror fans. Just seeing Kane play Jason again. All you guys probably know this. It was a dream come true for us, and something that he really loved as well. So he was finally back. And, we've had how many mocaps now?
Like 4 or 5.
Yeah,
4. We just shot another one a month or so ago. As time's all morphing together at this point, but
yeah, not only were we doing videos and recording all this at the same time, but we were doing live broadcasts from the set and taking people there. So our biggest community fan members, they were literally brought. The second we started broadcasting, they could see exactly what we were working on and exactly what everybody was doing and what Kane was doing on the set. And that really went over big. And every time we go out and do one of these mocap sessions, even now, post-launch, like we always will do a Periscope, we'll record stuff and put in the video. We just added stuff to the new dev diary.
Yeah. This is all scalable too. You don't have to have a huge project to turn your camera on and capture you working at a desk working on animation or something. So you may not be going to mocap studios like this and having famous horror people working on your game, but you can show your fans what you're doing, right? So, it's all relative to size and scale. So we were lucky to have such horror icons on our game. That helped us a lot, and we had incredible kills. We get to kill people for a living. This is insane. But at the end of the day, you can still do this if you have a small project, right?
Oh, yeah.
So... But yeah, we've done several of these videos, and we've probably seen them 1,000 times. So they're all over we have 4 or 5 of those videos.
So on the flip side, managing expectations. Like if people don't understand, like when you're not able to show the gameplay and everything's not fully realized, they still want to know like what they're going to get. And one of the ways we went out and did it, we kind of did overviews, like top-down views of like gameplay moments that we anticipated would be in our game as best as we could. Like we were still in a prototyping phase. Things weren't 100% locked down and nailed down. Everything was being tweaked and balanced. But we had the core of the game there, but it didn't look good. There's no way we could have shown what we had at the time. Mm-hmm. People would have just been upset and freaked out that this game is not going to come together.
I mean, that's any game.
Yeah.
Like, any game you've ever played that you love, at one stage, it was hideous and broken and ugly. And it's what's shocking about that is it's that way for a very long time, actually, until it gets closer and tighter to a polished stage, there's a lot of stuff that's just not ready to be shown. So when you see trailers and stuff for titles, it's usually like, sort of a beauty corner. They take one area and they sign a team and they like make this area right here really pretty, and the trailer takes place there, where if the camera had panned back and shown you the rest of the place,
oh my God,
it's a dumpster fire, right? Like,
yeah,
it's horrible.
it's not a light switch, right? Turn it on, the whole map's done.
No,
it's awesome.
no.
You do little sections. So
yeah, doing these little, because we knew that our gameplay was different, and it was hard. I mean, you can explain it now, and all you guys that have played in the room, you're like, yeah, that's easy. But if no one's seen it or played it, it's a little difficult to try to explain exactly what you're doing in the game, because some people think, that sounds boring. Like if you're trying to say, oh, yeah, you just,
survive.
Jason's just trying to kill you, and you have to hide and get out.
Yeah.
They're like,
okay.
But so we knew we needed like some type of visuals to try to describe it and explain it and say, this is how our game is going to work. So we just took basic 2D art and animated it a little bit and made some videos and had Sessler do some VO over it.
Yeah, it ended up working really well. People kind of got the idea. In a nutshell, we had like 5 of these videos, 5 or 6, and they're all like a minute long. We'll show you one real quick right here.
Of course it helps that Adam Sessler's narrating and he's part of it. Of course, we know that. So, and he said hi, by the way.
The phone will spawn randomly on the map every match. Here we have 2 counselors who are working on the phone. Remember, this takes time and you're vulnerable. Jason is coming, and one of the counselors is trying to distract him as the call is made. The police have been reached. You now have 10 minutes to stay alive and avoid Jason. Good luck.
Good luck. So it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be some kind of big production. You can do something that simple and give people an idea of exactly what the game is going to play like, even way before you want to show it. So at the end of the day, we ended up hitting our goal. We achieved our crowdfunding milestones, but people missed out on it. Like, we got the word out as best we could. Obviously, that was our goal, but not everybody heard about it. Even hardcore fans were still a month later, 3 weeks later, 2 months later, or whatever. They were still contacting us. How can we get in? How can we back this? It sucks that we missed out on it. We want to help you.
Yeah.
So that we missed out on it. We want to help you. Yeah. So Slacker backers are usually like extensions of the Kickstarter that developers will do. And we named ours a slasher backer, obviously, because it's a slasher game, right? Yeah. But we went with Backer Kit because at the time they were offering a really sweet deal, and it ended up working out really well for us. We sold stuff like our virtual cabin, which a lot of people had fun playing with and hanging out with, and seeing more behind the scenes stuff through that we're working on. But yeah, you just have to ensure that all of your items are clearly labeled, everything is detailed, and all the explanations of when people can expect to get something are all there, everything's set up, and always keep updating your FAQ as well.
Real quick though, do you think we could have launched this game without doing Backer Kit?
At the end of the day, it helped fill the gap.
Yeah, I don't know how much we want to tell, but when Kickstarter's over, you might have 20,000 pieces of information of your customers' information, right? So how do you contact these people? How do you get them their game? Yeah. How do you do any of this stuff? Like, it's just handed to you in like this
Excel spreadsheet that's not laid out.
Imagine that.
Effectively.
So you're like, yeah, we finally did it, and you have all this money, and you're like, we might pull this off, and they're like, how do we get these people their stuff? How do we contact them? This is an Excel spreadsheet of 20,000 people. 20,000 people.
Yeah,
it's a nightmare.
Yep.
So people don't know that. So that's why Back Your Kid exists, because they came in to fill the void. And they handle all that stuff for you, so that when you want to send out an email to anyone who had a certain tier, you just go, yep, and you do it. And it's clean, and it does it all at once. I mean, it's still a little bit of work for you.
Yeah.
But without Back Your Kid,
it would have been a nightmare.
We don't even know what we've done. we were looking around going, what do we do?
Yeah,
and Back Your Kid takes their cut too.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's more money gone.
Got their hand in the pot. So. But, I mean, again, I mentioned about being a double-edged sword, that if you come out and you have 100 customers, you can do
manageable.
that. You can do that all day, right? Like, that's not that difficult. It's still going to be sort of garbled-gook, like what you get in the Excel spreadsheet, but it's 100 names. You can figure it out. But when you have 20, 30,000 of them,
44,000.
Oh, there you go.
That we ended up with, yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult when you have an Excel spreadsheet that's, I don't know how many pages long, but
like, it would actually take 12 minutes to download it.
But then you can't even send the codes to those people. You have to do it one at a time.
One at a time, yeah.
Imagine
And
that.
that took forever.
And that's what BackerKit provides. So you do pay for BackerKit, but they are worth it because that's the services they provide. They found a hole and they filled it. And if we had to send those codes out, you'd still be waiting on your game.
Yeah.
Like you still would not even have your digital code yet. Like it would be 3 months later, we'd still be like manually one at a time.
44,000 emails.
Randy, where's my code?
Yeah, like that's what it would be.
It's coming.
That's something we didn't know. No one told us that. No one that I talked to about Kickstarter told me that or even went through that process. So it was, if you're going to do that, be prepared for. You need BackerKit. So.
Yep.
And you always want to have an end date as well. You just have to plan it all out, and then you're going to transition to a pre-order page, which is what we did. And during this whole process, we also kicked off a beta.
Yep.
Who played the beta?
Awesome. Thank you.
Yay, thank you.
Very cool. Yeah, and you while you're doing the beta, again, you just want to make sure if you're going to do a beta, if it makes sense for your game to release it, let people check it out, then just be ready to collect data on it, kind of figure out how your players are using the game, playing the game, work with the community. But yeah, you want to get feedback when it's over as well. So, and I think you set up the survey that we ended up actually doing.
Yeah. I made that card too.
All right. I liked it.
Thanks.
So, and along with that, collecting data, like we started figuring out, some of the things that took time, and what people didn't like, what they did like, and started tweaking and balancing the game with that information. So we could start to figure out, here's our list of everything people are asking for. Here's what people are asking for most. And then that kind of falls into, like, now what do we do? Like, we have to figure out the plan and then stick to it because, you do the beta, now it's time to get ready to launch.
Yep. Yeah, real quick, you have to figure out, do we change course based on community feedback or do we stay the same? Right. And it's a little bit of both, honestly. So if you're going to do a beta, be prepared to take actual feedback and put it in your game in some sort of way. So.
Yeah, and if you don't do it, I mean, there's a lot of companies that will do a marketing beta. And we definitely didn't want to do that. We wanted to do an actual beta and actually listen to what people were saying and incorporate that feedback. And then we released a video to kind of show after the beta, here's all the changes we made. We talked about throwing knives, the cars can run you over. Yeah. Like but we were very open with that and how the flare gun would work. All that kind of changed because of actual feedback that we were listening to the community like we always promised. And ended up implementing it, and it made the game far cooler. And everybody agreed, like all those changes from the beta were really solid ones.
This is a slide.
Stayed the same.
This is a slide that usually sinks your company right here. Like this part right here. It's like, oh, oops, we ran out of money. What do we do?
Chat what?
Our backers think the game's coming out in 2 weeks, and we have no money left or something weird. Like, it's what happens. Kickstarters fail at this stage. QA process, all that takes forever. So. Whatever you think you need for QA, right? Double it.
Yeah, I mean,
at least.
I mean, we stopped that process kind of early, like externally, because it's just, it's expensive and it just, we had to bring it internal and do the best job we could with who we had. But then that was taking like, our producer, pretty much our producer and associate producer were working with our, one other QA guy internally, and they were like.
Oh, yeah.
Taking all their time up, and we're trying to stay to a schedule and everything, but now they're testing all times of the night, and we would all
go ahead and add 2 months to cert. The certification process. Go ahead and double it because you're going to fail cert.
And we just had this like checklist that we would go through, and we're like, does this work? Okay, okay, just for the cert process, because usually you can, when you work with like a large publisher, with a multi-million-dollar budget, you can just go to them and basically say, hey, like, test this all for the certification issues, and they bring you a report back, and then usually they have internal people to help you even fix that. So
yeah, Kickstarter, you're not going to have that luxury at all. So just know that in advance.
Yeah. Another thing we found out when we were building this, like, this is crazy, but people who backed the game, paid good money, never contacted us, never followed up, never completed their surveys. And we're just like, well, we got your money. We really want to give you your stuff. Like, why will you not get back to us every time we send another email? So that was a fact that I never even thought could even have been a possibility. But, like, we have over 1,000 people still after post-launch that are just sitting there. They either don't know they have a code waiting for them, they forgot, or they just don't know how to collect it, and they don't know how to log in and complete their survey. So it's going to happen. you just have to let it roll and know that a year later they might ask for their code, and you have to be ready to send it.
Yep.
So this is probably the last slide we'll end here.
Yeah, we'll do this.
Physical is hard for indies. Like, you just don't have the infrastructure in place to plan and prep and get everything ready and rolling for the box art, pressing the discs and manufacturing them, submitting for certification of that. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a huge pain.
A lot of paperwork, right, Ben?
Please help me.
You just want to tell people
This is a cry
like,
for
the real
help.
secret here? You
can't-
can't make games.
You can't press the disc if you haven't moved 3 million units. I'm sorry, if you haven't made $3 million or 300,000 units, you're not
Previously
seeing-
in your
you can't
publishing
press the
career,
disc.
yeah.
Like-
You can't even make these games unless you're a publisher, so to speak.
Right.
So if you're a Kickstarter company, you can't even make retail discs for the customers who bought the retail copy because you can't make one. And there's minimum orders as well.
Yeah.
So you can't just go, hey, Sony, I need 1,000, or Microsoft or whoever, I need 1,000. They go, no, nice try.
Nope.
They all have their own minimum orders, but you can't just order what you need. Even if you could make the disc, which you can't
Right.
because you're not a publisher.
Right.
So you have to go out and get a publisher, which then takes part of your money as well.
Correct.
They do a lot of cool stuff for you.
Sure.
But we didn't know that.
Right.
Like, no, you can't make games. We're like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
We can't make our physical copies. Oops.
That sums it up. Yeah.
So Wes had to spend 6 months with every publisher on the planet trying to get meetings. You're going to go through that, and we have an awesome publishing partner now.
Yep.
So luckily, that's not a problem, but just know that you can do that. So
Yeah, don't wait to the end to figure that out. Like, start planning this early on. Start talking to people
Yeah.
from the start as soon as you can, because if you're truly independent, you're going to need to partner up. Plain and simple.
Sony's a little more lenient.
yeah, they were. Yep. They were very lenient, but everyone has 2 different policies, and they're going to not feel good in your wallet. They're going to just
Yeah.
know.
I don't know if we have time, but
Yeah, we got 3
Yeah,
I think we have like 5.
we usually hang out afterwards, and if you guys want to talk, we can do that again. Sorry about the lack of QA, but
Yeah, we'll be out
I'll
there.
be around for a while. If you
Yeah, we'll be out there.
Jack.
we can probably take one.
Yeah.
We can probably take one.
Yeah.
got-
Who's
yeah,
got
we
the
got
most
one.
important question here?
That guy.
Or just a question.
Wait, before you.
We can
before
just
you
do it till they
ask,
kick us out. Go.
The entire world is watching. What is your question?
What happened?
What do you mean by that? There's a.
Okay. Xbox launch problems.
Gotcha. From launch, or are you saying just? Yeah.
Okay. Servers and memory lane?
Sure.
All right.
Chuck, you want to lead that one out?
Yeah, no, I mean there was a lot of things like with that. I mean we ended up moving to a new matchmaking system that Microsoft ended up working with us on and all that stuff. So it was pretty new. That was kind of supposed to help, but it's also new tech kind of rolling in. After we launched. I mean, really, what happened is we overloaded their matchmaking servers. And they have certain limits. They start throttling you. So when everyone kind of jumped on in the beginning, it just wasn't an efficient algorithm really, and it wasn't really like, it's matchmaking something that is built over time, and there's no way for us to easily tell like how stuff is going to hold up, because you have to think like at most we might have 20 dev kits or something like that we're testing against. So we're testing against a very small sample size. So we're trying to build everything to test scale. But really, I mean, it's like every company kind of has those issues, like Ubisoft, Activision, like all those companies have these algorithms that are built on over time and years, and they're made for large player bases. So that was a lot of it in the beginning. Then we switched to a new system, which still kind of has its kinks and everything. And right now I can tell you that we've actually decided to build our own internal matchmaking algorithms across all platforms. So we're moving to our own system that's coming soon with some other stuff. I don't know.
Dedicated servers we've already.
Yeah.
confirmed.
Okay. Yeah. So
that's going to help.
We have other companies we've been partnering with for it. So it's a mistake we never want to make again. It was I don't know. It was a big problem for us. We were, as a dev team, we're pretty embarrassed by it, but it's tricky because it's not like it's crazy because you can't just connect to this system and debug it either. So I can't connect to live and and start debugging and seeing like, you know, hey, here's the sample size of what's coming back. Here's the people. Let me tweak this algorithm. It's like we kind of just do it, and then, you know, patch goes through QA, and then it goes through certification, and that might be 2 or 3 weeks from when we did it, and then it kind of comes out the other end, and it is what it is, and then we learn from it, and then we try to fix it, and we're always shooting in the dark. So, you know, we feel like the new system we're moving to is going to be a lot more solid and just really help to make sure you can play with everyone, match with everyone, and all that stuff. And then, you know, once that works, it's like we got it. It's going to be ours forever, and moving forward with other things, we know it's going to hold up because we've had hundreds of thousands of concurrents. So
there was also the memory leak issue.
Yeah.
You know, we had a memory leak issue as well that we were battling against. So we were fighting the memory leak issue on Xbox and the server issues. So we were trying to move to the new matchmaking system while also fixing the memory leaks. And when you have a team that's tiny, because though you don't get that money right away, when you sell a copy of the game, it's a couple months before you get money. So by the time you launch your Kickstarter, you're out of money. So you can't hire new people. Even if you could hire new people, I don't know if you've ever been hired in a different state, you got to sell your house, move your family, quit your job, put your 2 weeks in. It takes a couple months to hire.
This is highly technical stuff.
Yeah.
So
anyway, it was an uphill battle for that for a long time, and we sincerely apologize for it. It was really embarrassing to us as a group, and it was not fun at all. So.
But anyways, we are out of time. Thank you guys for coming out to the Kickstarter, or for our Kickstarter panel. Jason, make sure you check out our Twitter. You might see something funny. But again, we'll be out there.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming.
Yep.
And we will see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks.
Attention viewer, if you enjoyed that video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe.